covering all presidents of the USA in the last 100 years, would include presidents from Woodrow Wilson, starting in 1921, to Joe Biden, as of the current year, 2021. Here's a brief overview of each president's best performances during this period. 1. Woodrow Wilson, 1913-1921. 1. Led the country through World War I and played a key role in the creation of the League of Nations, advocating for international cooperation. 1. Warren G. Harding, 1921-1923. 1. Advocated for a return to normalcy after World War I. 2. Focused on disarmament and international relations. 1. Calvin Coolidge, 1923-1929. 1. Emphasized limited government intervention and fiscal responsibility. 2. Known for economic prosperity and a period of relative stability. 1. Herbert Hoover, 1929-1933. 1. Faced the onset of the Great Depression and implemented policies to address economic challenges. 2. Established the Reconstruction Finance Corporation to provide economic relief. 1. Franklin D. Roosevelt, 1933-1945. 1. Led the country through the Great Depression and World War II. 2. Implemented the New Deal, which included a series of programs aimed at economic recovery and relief. 3. Established Social Security and introduced key financial and banking reforms. 1. Harry S. Truman, 1945-1953. 1. Made the decision to drop atomic bombs on Japan, ending World War II. 2. Led the United States into the early years of the Cold War and implemented containment policies. 3. Successfully integrated the armed forces and desegregated federal agencies. 1. Dwight D. Eisenhower, 1953-1961. 1. Led Allied forces in Europe during World War II and oversaw the D-Day invasion. 2. Navigated the early years of the Cold War and promoted interstate highway construction. 3. Promoted civil rights and dispatched federal troops to enforce desegregation. 1. John F. Kennedy, 1961-1963. 1. Advocated for civil rights and equal opportunity. 2. Successfully managed the Cuban Missile Crisis and initiated the Apollo program. 1. Lyndon B. Johnson, 1963-1969. 1. Passed significant civil rights legislation, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. 2. Expanded social programs through his Great Society initiatives. 3. Successfully pushed for the creation of Medicare and Medicaid. 1. Richard Nixon, 1969-1974. 1. Improved relations with China and the Soviet Union, known as Nixon's China and détente. 2. Signed into law important environmental regulations, including the Clean Air Act and the Endangered Species Act. 1. Gerald Ford, 1974-1977. 1. Assumed the presidency after Nixon's resignation and focused on healing the nation. 2. Pardoned Nixon, which was a controversial decision. 3. Worked to stabilize the economy and address energy challenges. 1. Jimmy Carter, 1977-1981. 1. Negotiated the Camp David Accords between Egypt and Israel, leading to a historic peace agreement. 2. Focused on energy conservation and human rights, including promoting diplomacy in conflicts. 1. Ronald Reagan, 1981-1989. 1. Advocated for conservative economic policies, known as Reaganomics, which aimed to stimulate economic growth through tax cuts. 2. Played a role in ending the Cold War and promoted a strong defense. 3. Successfully negotiated arms reduction agreements with the Soviet Union. 1. George H. W. Bush, 1989-1993. 1. Led the United States during the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. 2. Oversaw the Gulf War to liberate Kuwait from Iraq's invasion. 3. Advocated for the Americans with Disabilities Act, which aimed to promote equal access and rights for people with disabilities. 1. Bill Clinton, 1993-2001. 1. Achieved budget surpluses and fostered economic growth. 2. Successfully managed the Kosovo conflict and promoted NATO expansion. 3. Advocated for global initiatives, such as addressing climate change and promoting international trade. 1. George W. Bush, 2001-2009. 1. Led the country in response to the September 11 terrorist attacks and initiated the War on Terror. 2. Successfully managed the early stages of the global war on terrorism, including the removal of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. 3. Implemented the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, a major international health initiative. 1. Barack Obama, 2009-2017. 1. Passed the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, expanding healthcare coverage for millions of Americans. 2. Advocated for financial regulation through the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. 3. Advocated for the Paris Agreement, an international effort to address climate change. 1. Donald Trump, 2017-2021. 1. Advocated for tax reform and deregulation, resulting in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. 2. Engaged in diplomacy with North Korea and brokered Middle East peace agreements. 3. Launched Operation Warp Speed to accelerate the development of COVID-19 vaccines. 1. Joe Biden, 2021-present. 1. Focused on addressing the COVID-19 pandemic through vaccination efforts and economic recovery. 2. Advocating for infrastructure and climate change initiatives. 3. Rejoining international agreements such as the Paris Agreement and addressing social and racial issues. Please note that these summaries provide a snapshot of each president's best performances and achievements during the past 100 years. Each president's legacy is multifaceted,